Welcome to the Tipsy Tennis Podcast. I am here with Jacob. I found him on the courts. He sucks, but he has some pretty good takes on professional tennis. So we're going to hear some of that today. Jacob, how are you doing?
Good, Adam. Thanks for having me. Adam was teaching me how to hit a proper forehand. Yes. So check that out when that drops, that video. We were just chopping it up for 3 hours maybe? 3 hours, 15 minutes waiting to play.
Waiting forever to get on the courts.
Talking about tennis. Adam and Curvel, friend, partner, we're passing out stickers. Tipsy Tennis, great idea. Tipsy Tennis is going up. Wait for it.
In honor of Tipsy Tennis, I got a couple beers right now. We're about to shotgun these.
Cheers.
To start off this episode. I got a knife over here.
We are active at the Tipsy Tennis Podcast. Shout out Adam. Shout out Tipsy Tennis. Shout out tennis.
Shout out to the small kid who doesn't know how to fight. You know who you are. Cheers.
Good brew. Good brews.
So, bro, you would think this gets easier. The more you do it, it really doesn't.
No, it's vile.
Anyway, so, to get this podcast started, who do you think is going to win Wimbledon this year?
It's tough because obviously the 1, 2, and 3, Djokovic, Carlitos, and Daniil are all going to be the overwhelming favorites, I'd say. Djokovic, you can't not acknowledge his excellent on grass for the past however many years. Of course, besides Federer, I would say he's number 2. Alcaraz doesn't have that much experience, only has played in 3 tournaments ever, what I read today.
On grass, right?
On grass, yeah. He's having a good season so far. He narrowly won the first round of Queens against, I forget what it was, but it went to a tie break.
Look this up in real time. So he beat
Rinderknecht. He beat Rinderknecht in the 3rd set breaker, and he destroyed Lehechka today. Lehechka, a good young player. I would say Berrettini.
He's washed up.
But he's obviously having some issues with whatever off the court, on the court. He's withdrawing from all these matches because of chest pain, whatever it is. You really have to go with Djokovic, right? But if he's not going to play in a tournament on grass until Wimbledon, then it's tough. Hopefully what we can see, because obviously Alcaraz and Djokovic will be in 1 and 2, two completely different sides of the draw, is them in a final, to see them rematch their quarterfinal, their semifinal match at Roland Garros.
You know what I'm going to call right now? I'm going to call out, so for me, Djokovic is the only contender for this title. I don't see anybody putting up a fight against him. And Alcaraz, I'm going to throw this out there, early exit.
Early exit?
Before he's going to lose in the 3rd round or earlier.
Okay. I wrote a mini blog post for you. Not mini. It's 4 pages long, which nice. I'll send to you. I got to edit it down, put it through ChatGPT, the works, But I have Djokovic as a 3rd round exit. That's what I said in the blog post. Because
really?
Listen, what you were saying, he was playing with the torn hamstring.
Yeah.
How long can he maintain that? Really? Of course, he's the GOAT, right? He won last year. Oh my God, that Kyrgios finals match. Of course, everyone was gunning for Kyrgios. Not everyone, but some people.
The one thing I'd say when it comes to the grass court season, is players that need to make the largest adjustments in their movement are the ones that are going to struggle the most.
Yeah.
And you look at a guy like Federer, his movement between hard court, clay court, and grass court, it doesn't really change too much. Obviously, it's different because of their adjustments he makes. But a guy like Djokovic, he his movement is just so efficient, I would say, versus like a guy like Alcaraz. Even though he moves amazingly, it's very explosive and it's not very efficient, and we saw that exactly happen during the French Open.
Yeah.
And so guys like that, I think, struggle on grass court. And then you have the bigger guys who have like the big serves and the serve and volley. So like Berrettini, you mentioned, Kyrgios, Cressy. I think he's gonna stand out. Struff, I think he's gonna break out. I think Struff is gonna make it to the quarters this year.
Great season.
But my dark horse for this tournament, I'm gonna say, is Jannik Sinner.
Yannick?
Only because he is almost like a parallel to like a younger Djokovic. Okay. He has very short strokes, so he's able to, he doesn't get pushed back very easily. If he could have a really good transition game during Wimbledon, like coming from the baseline to the net, and he could finish, I don't see anybody who can.
Does he? No,
we'll see.
I don't see him come to the net.
He doesn't come to the net often.
His cross-court forehands are rippers.
Yeah.
Always. I personally think he needs to put on some weight.
Small guy, doesn't know how to fight.
He's small. He gets injured a lot. I mean, he's always having something shit wrong with him. My dark horse for Wimbledon, Seb Korda. Watch it.
Yo, I wanted to talk about him today.
Yeah,
he released in a press conference.
I just saw that. Yeah.
He's like, I think I'm a favorite.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which
I don't know. I mean, given Tiafoe had a long week last week in Stuttgart, he beat Leonard Jan Struff in the finals in Jan's home. That was I don't know if you saw that match.
I haven't been keeping up too much recently.
Third set breaker, insane match point. I can't even explain it. It was class. But Seb moves well on grass. I mean, given I don't really play tennis, so I don't know too much about, the movement and everything. I mean, I understand it, but I can't speak from a first person perspective. I'm sure you could, but I don't know. I think he's probably ranked around 34 right now. Korda, yeah. 32, 34?
Currently 32.
32, yeah. So I mean, listen, like who did he beat first round in Halle?
Offner.
Oh, no, this is
French Open.
This is French Open, yeah.
My boy Offner taking out Seb Korda.
The boy Offner, the Wolfgang Connect.
Bro, he broke into the top 100. He's 27 years old. Like, this guy is like a journeyman. People don't know him, but he's been grinding on tour, and I'm really happy that he finally broke through. So Korda beat Tiafoe.
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah,
and Evans, bro. Evans is a tricky player to play. He's tough to play, especially on grass.
He's a big slice every shot backhand. Yeah, I mean, he's clean, of course, but he hasn't had a great season. I know. This stat line 7-6-6-3 Korda against Tiafoe doesn't reflect how dominant Korda was, in my opinion. He had like 14 or 15 aces, which I don't really see him as too big of a. Yeah, looking 15 aces.
Looking at the stats,
he does. I don't see him as that big of a serve guy. I mean, clearly he does though.
Win percentage on his first serve 90%. Wow. So almost every single time he got a first serve in, he was winning the point. And then Tiafoe, he's 67% on the first serve and 64% on the second serve. And however, though, Korda on his second serve was 52%.
Okay, so yeah, he needs to get his first serves in. This is a question that I had thinking to the grass season right now. Who do you think, if there's one player, who do you think has the most swag, finesse? No, not finesse. Swag on tour based on something that they wear, an action that they, take, or like what their walkout, whatever it is. Who do you think? I have someone in mind. Who do you think?
I mean, I think the most obvious choice is Kyrgios.
Okay, of course.
But if we want to step back away from him, because he also isn't really playing, he had like a first round exit, and it's not even sure if he's going to play Wimbledon. Yeah. The next swaggiest player, I would say, is between Tiafoe and Dimitrov.
Okay.
Dimitrov is a swaggy player. He's
low-key.
You know, one thing that actually really surprised me, and nobody has talked about this at all. Here's another beer. Cheers.
Cheers.
Nobody has talked about this at all. I mentioned it like in one of my stories on Instagram on at Tipsy Tennis. You should follow it. Tipsy Tennis Podcast.
Tipsy Tennis Podcast.
He switched over to Lacoste.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he was like
a month ago.
Yeah, for the French Open.
From
Nike.
Nike, yeah.
And that was such a weird
swag.
I was not expecting that because like Dimitrov is always wearing like the loudest clothes. He has a very loud fashion to it. And Nike was like really driving it. And I feel like he's stepping back and being a little bit more conservative and I would say maybe classier with Lacoste.
Do you know who else is Lacoste?
Djokovic is Lacoste. Medvedev is Lacoste. Roddick was Lacoste. I remember. I was never really a big fan of Roddick growing up.
Okay.
But man, did I like when I was a little kid, it was like my dream to have a Lacoste polo. Like I really wanted. And then finally, when I started working and I was making because I was always asking my parents for. I'm like, hey, can I get one of these? And they're expensive.
Yeah. And
I was always wearing like hand-me-downs for my brother and like for my cousins and stuff like that.
Of course.
And when I finally got like a Lacoste polo, I'm like, oh,
this is it.
I've made it. Swaggiest player, so I'd say it's between Tiafoe and Dimitrov. How about you?
Just because the season he's having, and of course, I love the swag Tiafoe plays with as well, right? Mm-hmm. I think whenever he loses, or whenever he wins, honestly, his handshake at the net with the players, with his opponent is always so hard. He's like so hard, like quick. It's like it almost seems like it hurts. I love him. I think Nicholas Jarry, that nose strip that he wears every match to keep his sinuses open, he's inside the top 50 now. He's
Chilean.
He's a Chilean. He's a big Chilean. He's playing right now. Yesterday he beat Tsitsipas in straights 7-6, 7-5. I mean, given Tsitsipas is in a whirlwind with his whole girl Paula Badosa and everything. Zverev, Jerry tomorrow. That's going to be a good match. Also, I like the way Zverev plays on grass. I like how he plays in general. I have heard that people don't like him.
The biggest issue I always had with Zverev is he's a huge guy and he doesn't play like a big guy. He rallies way too much. His strokes should be way more penetrating. Like Sinner has more penetrating strokes than Zverev.
That is true.
And to give a comparison, I would say another big guy that he could emulate. He's retired now, but Thomas Berdych.
Yeah, I know Berdych. Yeah.
I think that Berdych was a big guy with big strokes. Like he sets up his forehand really well, and when he tees off, it goes flying. Same thing with Del Potro.
Yeah.
Big guy who's able to just tee off.
They have mass though. All of them.
All of them are able to tee off.
But Zverev doesn't really have mass.
He just can't tee off. He's built up his mass in the last few years. Yeah. He was always kind of like a skinny guy, but you have small guys who are able to tee off, and Zverev, I just feel like he was never really able. He never found that gear to just I'm set up right now, and I'm just gonna kind of not a slap, but just kind of whip the forehand and do whatever he wants. Like Sock, for example. He can tee off.
Yeah.
And he's not a huge guy either.
You saw. Also, let me preface this by saying I've only been following tennis for about 2.5 years, but it's pretty much all that I, like to do now. Every night with my girl, she knows what time it is. She's like, you want to watch your highlights? I'm like, yes, every single night. YouTube, tennis TV, whatever tournament it is, they have 9-minute highlights. They only show 3 to 4 matches, the highlights of them. But
I love those.
The best. Sock, I don't know if you saw, but he's transitioned to professional pickleball now.
He's fully transitioned. He's gone through transition operation.
Yeah, exactly, bro. It's crazy. I mean, he. Ivan Gakov, I don't know if you know who he is. They played in one of these hard Florida tournaments. I want to say it was Delray, something like that. And Gakov is a real estate investor.
Yes, that guy.
Yeah, who just like randomly came on tour one day, got the wild card, I guess, and beat Sock in straights. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was 3. I don't know what it was. But after that, Sock was kind of like, okay, I gotta do something else. Him and Isner got the wild card in doubles for Wimbledon, which is pretty cool.
So Sock, he's a really good doubles player. He was top 10. He was top 10.
They've had titles. Isner and Sock together.
Sock, there's like that old adage where it's like if you can't play, teach, and if you can't teach gym. Or in this case, it's like if you can't play, teach, and if you can't teach, you play pickleball.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
Like, I mean, Noah Rubin, he's made the transition as well. Query, he retired from tennis.
Yeah, of
and now he's playing pickleball.
Is he really?
Yeah,
he's a big guy too. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like top 10. He made it to I think the semis of the Wimbledon even one year.
So one more question for you. Who do you think, in terms of the build-up, in the new age, is the biggest disappointment on tour?
New age. You want to say like
last couple years? We'll say for the last 5 years.
You know, that's a tough question to answer because we're exiting an era right now.
Yeah, fully.
And you know, even like the guys, like everybody was always talking about like Tsitsipas, Zverev, Berrettini, Medvedev is kind of in that category as well, and it was very tough for them to break out because like they're always losing to like the big 3, Fed, Nadal, Djokovic, and now it's a little bit more open.
Is it though?
It's more open in the sense that you don't know who's gonna win.
Yeah.
The competition is still just as high, but I mean, Tsitsipas, I was following him since he was like 18, 19 years old. I remember when he first won Estoril.
Okay.
The clay court, the first clay court tournament of the season, back when he was like 19 years old or something like that. And I was watching it on tennis TV where like he wasn't even getting any coverage. And I'm like, yo, this guy, he's sick, and he has really good movement. He has good movement. I'm not so impressed by his strokes, but like the way he moves is very like Federer like. We're like very wide steps, or wide legs. You know, try to take a few steps, always trying to like hit into it, the straight arm as well. I
feel like his backhand is unreliable. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, you know the thing that I see with Tsitsipas that's different between like the top guys. Let's take like David Ferrer, for example.
Okay.
Not a huge guy. He was in the top 10 for like a decade.
Yeah.
And a guy like Ferrer, even though he's small, and you need to have this when you're small, he had grit.
Yeah.
He had fucking grit.
Like who would you compare him to now?
I would compare him to
Alcaraz? No?
Nah, who's gritty right now? Who's some player that just like sticks around, like no matter how much you try to like kick him away, like he just sticks around no matter what.
Yeah,
like there's not many players like that. One thing actually when I say about grit though, Taylor Fritz.
Yeah.
I think he made a nice transition in the last couple of years where he was like, he had a lot of stuff going on in his personal life as well.
You know he had a kid?
Yeah, exactly.
I found that out today.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like, I think like at 20 years old
19,
or something.
19.
Yeah. But like, after that, Fritz found this like grit to him where it's like, kind of like Nadal. I mean, Nadal I would say is like the most obvious example of it. Of somebody who's just gritty, who just grinds.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, Tsitsipas, he doesn't have grit. No. Zverev has a little bit. Medvedev,
like high rally tolerance.
Yeah. And just like doing whatever it takes to just get one more ball in, even though you think you're gonna lose the point, you just get that extra ball in.
Of course.
And like 1 out of maybe 10 or 1 out of 15, you win the point.
Yeah. But
like, it's better than 0.
Of course. Yeah.
And so you just got to do it anyway. And you know, and I think Tsitsipas, he really, you know, I keep talking about Tsitsipas. I'm gonna say he's my biggest disappointment, just to answer your question.
Okay, yeah.
Because you know, not only is like, you know, he's a good player, he's got good strokes, he's got a good team around him, but he doesn't have that grit. You were seeing it, especially now that he's distracted with his new girlfriend.
Yeah.
But then also, like, last year at Wimbledon, where he had a complete mental breakdown against Kyrgios.
I remember, yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
that's not... And, you know, speaking to kind of, like, lead onto that point as well, because I found this kind of funny. I don't think he's going to listen to this, but even if he does, Alex Kavečević, I fucking love you.
Alex.
I grew up playing juniors with him. I played him in a under 14s tournament at Randall's Island. He kicked my ass, and then we were ball boys for the U.S. Open together. And then we'd see each other at some tournaments. He was much higher, ranked than me, and he was more focused on like the sectionals and nationals. I always struggled in those bigger tournaments, but every time I went, we'd see each other, we'd say hi, we'd hang out, in between matches. But the funniest thing, he's Serbian.
Yeah.
I was talking to my Serbian friend, the guy I was talking about earlier, who played, he's episode 3 of Tipsy Tennis Podcast, Nenad Radakovic. He played against Djokovic when they were in juniors, good friends with Troitsky. And so he has, the Serbian pride to him. But so Kavečević made it to the first round of French Open, which was, he's, I think, 22 years old, was the first time he got to a main draw of a Grand Slam. He's played all the qualies.
Yeah.
But first time, and he plays Djokovic in the first round. I mean,
this year.
Honestly, yeah, this year.
Yeah, I remember watching that.
Honestly, I wouldn't even be upset if I had to play Djokovic in the first time, even though it's like, oh, I finally made it. Oh shit, now I gotta play this guy. That's just like a memorable moment in our lives. But I was following him on Instagram, and literally a few days later after he lost, he was partying in Mallorca. And
attaboy, Alex.
Attaboy, but this is what my friend said.
Oh, sorry.
He's like, even though he lost first round, and now, he probably got a big paycheck
80K,
and all that kind of
80K.
stuff. Yeah, go enjoy your life, that's what it is. But, and here's the difference here's the thing that separates
the good from the great.
Here's what separates the big 3, big 4 from everybody else. No fucking shot.
Yeah, no.
Are you ever going to see Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, or Murray partying in Ibiza? Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
No, they're back on the court. And that's the first thing that he said is it doesn't matter if you lost. You would never see that from one of those guys. And if you're trying to be just like a good player and make it on tour, make a paycheck, you hear that, Kyrgios is one of those guys. Yeah. He just goes, makes his money, and then goes home.
Fucks around, yeah.
That's fine. But if you're trying to strive for greatness, you just can't be doing that shit. Yeah. And I don't mean that by any disrespect. Alex, live your fucking life. But Federer, Nadal, Djokovic would never do that. Yeah, and
that's true.
That's I would tie that back into the grit.
Yeah,
the grit isn't only on court. The grit is off. And this is why I say Fritz, after he had that kid and he dealt with all of the shit in his personal life, he carried that grit over onto the court. And this is where you're starting to see Fritz is showing up. Top 10 in the world right now. He had a great
Indian Wells hardcore last year.
Everything is you gotta work, you gotta be gritty all around the court.
Totally.
And a lot of players just don't have that. There's social media, the amount of money that they're making now through stuff like that. It's very easy to get distracted. And that was one thing that I think really stood out between the greats.
You know who I think has grit?
Who?
Demonor.
So fucking gritty. I haven't heard anything from him though in the last few months. Has he been injured?
No, he's
just losing.
This is his first good tournament. He beat Schwartzman in straights today. Third round of either Queens or Halle. In terms of most disappointing player for me,
Demonor.
He mopped Murray and Schwartzman too. That's tough because Murray just won 2 challenger titles in a row in Nottingham and wherever.
He's playing Manarino next. Manarino's my other dark
class, bro. He's so good on grass. Manarino just beat today actually. Manarino beat he beat Fritz. He beat Fritz. Fritz is having a tough go recently. So my biggest disappointment on tour, this whole you remember, So for Tipsy Tennis, I'm a huge Alcaraz guy. Like, was jacking Alcaraz way before his first ever challenger match versus Pedro Martinez back in 2021, I think it was, or 2020. I saw, and I was like, told all my friends. I texted my group. I said, "This guy's gonna be number one. Watch." None of my friends really knew tennis, but the ones that did were like, "Oh, you're crazy. You're this. You're that." And he made it. I love the guy. I think as time has gone on, his humbleness has...
He's very humble.
But it's kind of turned to arrogant, in my opinion. He's like saying stuff like, "Oh, I'm the favorite to win the French Open," which he was. Don't get me wrong. He totally was. But I think a fully super humble person would not say that. I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken. If you know you're the shit, you're going to say you're the shit. Back to the most disappointing, next gen finals, him versus Nakashima. I don't know if you saw that, but that's the thing that got everyone onto him. That one 17, 18 shot rally where he like...
Just going back and forth.
Stupid. Nakashima is dog shit. He is dog
I love
shit.
B-Knock.
I don't...
Oh, come on. Don't say that.
Shapo too. Shapovalov.
He's a disappointment.
They were horrible. He hasn't made it past the second round in like 14 straight tournaments.
You know,
So bad.
I think one thing that is different about this era of tennis that you can't really compare to any of the other eras is the amount of media that's going on right now. Mm-hmm. And it's very easy to get distracted by all of it.
Yeah.
And so whenever, and I think the same thing happened to like Tsitsipas, Zverev, these guys where it's so easy for it to get to their head and there's so many distractions, whereas like, 10, 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't quite like that. And it's tough to break out like that, but also I never, even when like Tsitsipas, I remember when he beat Federer at the Australian Open, and then he's like, and then he followed that up with a win against Bautista Agut. And he
fell off too.
And he's old though.
He's
old.
old guy, yeah.
He's put in his miles to earn, he can do whatever the fuck he wants at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But
just like Gasquet. Go on.
Gasquet, yeah. So like the difference in the eras, there's a lot more distractions, but I never really weigh too much on people who are under, I would say like 22, 23 years old. Sure, they'll be good, but the difference that I see between guys like Alcaraz and like Federer, Nadal, Djokovic is the longevity of their career. Because Alcaraz, he plays one tournament and then he's injured and he has to miss the next one. And like you look
but that's not true.
You can look at this.
He's only been injured a couple times.
He's 19 years old. He shouldn't be injured at all.
I mean, when he's grinding for every single point, like he has grit. He has grit. He will never let him. So few winners get hit on him because... Is that correct terminology?
Yeah.
Because of his grittiness. I mean, yes.
Nadal wasn't injured when he was 19 years old.
Okay.
He started getting injured when he was like 26 years old. That's when he started to like take some breaks. And looking at another guy like Del Potro, this motherfucker won the U.S. Open at 19 years old.
Alcaraz won at 18.
And like Alcaraz, look at a guy like Del Potro. He was injured for the rest of his career. He was never able to get back to the thing. And if he didn't go, he had like a wrist surgery, then other wrist surgery, knee surgery, the other knee, a whole bunch of stuff going on. If he wasn't getting injured like that, he would have been a real fucking stick in the Big Three's side.
Yeah.
And there's so much potential there. But you really, you just got to wait it out. So, looking at a guy like Tsitsipas as well, like everybody was like, oh, he's the next big thing. This is the next gen. He's going to, these guys are going to carry the sport. But it's like, no, let's just observe. Let's sit and wait because we got to wait years. This isn't just like you can't jump to conclusions so quick. You got to see it. And the fact that like Federer, for example, has never retired from a match. He's never retired. Every single match that he's played, he's finished. That is
class.
He's had his like injuries and he took time off tour and stuff like that.
I didn't know that.
And
that's crazy.
And that's just like one insane stat. It doesn't really, speak to the greatness of him, but it speaks to the fact of how he was able to manage his body, manage his schedule, the way he was training, not going too hard, versus like a guy like Alcaraz, he's fucking redlining it the entire season, or whenever he's training or playing, but you could only redline for so long.
Yeah, for real.
And the things that separated Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer is like they were able to win without redlining against each other, or I mean, I guess each other they were redlining, but like against everybody else they didn't need to. And like tennis is a very particular sport where there's no clock to run out. You need to get to match point and you need to win match point. And I remember watching like Nadal Medvedev US Open final. Nadal was up 2 sets. And I remember
Medvedev was up 2 sets. Medvedev was up 2 sets.
No, Nadal was up 2 sets.
Medvedev, when Medvedev and Nadal were in the Australian Open.
No, US Open.
US Open. Oh yeah.
And I remember specifically telling my friend, I'm like, yo, this match can be done in 20 minutes or 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it took another 2 hours. And that's like the mental fortitude to, you got to be running. You're redlining it for an unknown amount of time in moments like that.
So crazy.
And like, not only is it like a huge toll physically, but it's a huge toll mentally. Just crazy, like,
I'm sure.
You lose the first 2 sets and you talk and you have that conversation with yourself. It's like, if I want to win this match, I need to win 3 sets in a row right now.
Yeah,
and each set is only going to get tougher and tougher when you're playing against these top guys because they're closers.
Yeah.
And Medvedev wasn't able to pull it out in that one, but I mean he put on a show. He put on a match.
I like how he plays.
Yeah.
I also think. Well, first off, Alcaraz, just quick. He's gonna get the Grand Slam record. That's me, what I think. Second off, watch out. 2 people, in my opinion, who are super, super good young players who literally just need to build fitness, and then they could be number 1 and within the top 10. Holger Rune and Jack Draper. Jack Draper is injured right now, but he's a Brit who's so good on grass. Class. Lefty, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Like shots. But yeah. He needs to... except he gets gassed out.
Cocks?
What?
It was a nice cock.
Nice cock. Super nice.
Is it nice cock or nice shot?
Nice shot.
Oh, okay.
He can't play best of 5 because he gets gassed after 2 sets, always. He was up on Nadal in something. I don't remember what it was.
It was,
He was up 2 sets.
I remember. It was, Nadal first round Australian Open this year. He was up and he was winning. And then he started cramping.
He cramps all the time. Holger Rune, if he can maintain, his legs are huge. His legs are fucking huge. And when it's hot, he cramps. If he can get some shit with his coach. Also, I don't know if you I don't really know coaches, but Patrick Mouratoglou is his coach. Even though they said they were leaving each other, Patrick is still at every one of his matches, coaching him, all this stuff. If they can figure something out together, he could actually be number 1. He is so good, so good. Every piece of his game is complete. Literally.
Can I tell you a story about Rune? My story with Rune. So he blocked me on Instagram. I would say...
He's super active on Instagram. He likes all the comments. He responded to my DM one time.
I wouldn't know. So in... This was... so you remember when he had that thing with Wawrinka, where Wawrinka was like, you're acting like a little kid?
Yeah, of course.
Or like a baby on court? So I found a meme. And it wasn't even my meme. It was like ATP memes page on Instagram, where it was a picture of Tsitsipas and Rune standing next to each other. And under Tsitsipas it said small kid who doesn't know how to fight, and then under Rune it was like a baby on court, something like that. So I reposted it on my story and I tagged Tsitsipas and Rune. And Rune saw it and immediately blocked me on Instagram because I posted something and I had Twinkle Twinkle Little Star playing in the background or something, kind of making fun of it. Funny. But I'm like, man, are you serious? Are you? Yeah.
He's clearly insecure about it.
I've posted some jokes about a bunch of other players as well, and I tag them because I want them to see it, and sometimes I do see it. For example, there's this one post where Kokkinakis was like standing with like two boys, and this is when he got like a buzz cut,
Okay, yeah.
and his head looked like a fucking egg.
Yeah.
And so I reposted it. It had Kokkinakis in the middle, and his two friends. I just put an egg on their face, and like he saw it, and like I'm making fun of the fact that he looks like an egg.
Did he respond?
No, he didn't respond, but like at least he didn't block me.
Yeah.
And
because Runa, he's a little kid. He's 20, and I don't know if you've seen, because you don't see his Instagram. He is so sus with his sister. I'm so serious. They comment hard eyes on. He comments hard eyes on her photos. He goes, "I love you." Like they post the weirdest photos together, like holding a head. He's a weirdo. Okay, so the top 10, right? It's in no particular order: Djokovic, Alcaraz, Rune, Fritz, Tiafoe, Rublev,
Sinner.
Yeah, Tsitsipas, Sinner, Medvedev.
Coric is 14.
Coric is going crazy.
What?
Yeah.
What?
And so out of these 10 people, the only people who I actually could see ever winning a Grand Slam, ever. I mean, as much as I love Rublev and everyone loves Rublev, we were talking about this the other day. He's never winning a Grand Slam.
He's gonna win one.
No, how could he possibly get past? Because let's say he's still ranked 7. He'll have to play Alcaraz and then Djokovic probably. There's no chance he's getting past both of them. Zero chance. It is impossible. He can't.
I mean, statistically speaking, let's say like Rublev is one of those guys where you can count on him getting to the quarters more times than not.
Of course, yeah. And then done.
And strictly, let's say
losing straights. He was losing straights. His Tsitsipas is a baby. I don't like him. He said Rublev plays one-dimensional. That's what he said. He's not wrong. Like Rublev, sure, he has a good backhand, he has a good forehand, but he's so predictable. Every time he's about to try and hit a winner, he goes, "Ugh!" and then it hits it. He has nothing. No drop shot, no net play, nothing.
I agree with you on that point, but the thing is, when you have a guy who's able to consistently get to the quarters of the Grand Slams, let's take out the fact of like favorites or not. He has a 12.5% chance of winning the tournament once he gets to the quarters. There's only 7 other people, and so 1/8 is 7.5%. Nice. He needs to win, from there 3 more matches. I don't know, like if you keep on getting to the quarters, like I feel like eventually you're gonna break through. And like looking back in the last, let's say 20 years, you have guys like Ferrer, Burdick, Gasquet, Verdasco, who are always able to get to the quarters and the semis and sometimes even the finals. And they were never able to win because they were always dealing with the big 3.
How did Team win? He played Zverev, no?
It was COVID US Open.
Oh, was it? Okay.
No crowds.
So it's different.
It was a little bit different. But like, looking at a guy like Team, like let's say he didn't get injured. I mean, he made it to French Open finals 2 times in a row.
Did he?
The first time he did it, he lost straight sets to Nadal. And then the second time he got there, the following year, he won a set. That's progress. Okay. And like
he's never getting back there ever again. He's losing on the Challenger Tour.
I mean, this is post injury. Let's talk about pre-injury. And like one thing that I don't think people recognize when it comes to Grand Slams of how important and how difficult it is getting to the second week to be like
for the mental.
Yeah. Like, do you know how just stepping on court like into the quarterfinals, into the semis, it's nerve-wracking.
Of course.
And these top guys, they do it time and time again, and for them it's like, I bet they feel nervous, but it's kind of like been there, done that. And it's tough. And so when you have a guy like Rublev who's consistently getting to the second week, he's building that kind of like that confidence, that kind of like habituation of being there. And once you stop thinking about that, you're able to think about what you need to do, and that's win. That's play your best tennis. You're not thinking about, holy shit, I'm in the second week of the US Open. And also it's the mental part, but it's also the physical part. Yeah, like it is tough.
Is taxing.
It's tough to play 2 weeks straight like that. 3 out of 5, and even especially if some of the matches are going 5 hours long.
Yeah. I remember at the US Open, I went to qualifiers this year, and I remember I was sitting in like the upper row. I was watching Jan-Lennard Struff. I want to say against like one of these, like Dominic Stricker or one of these, or Giels Brouwer, if you know him. He's some whatever. It was qualifying, and I was saying something to my friend, and I was like, I thought he was supposed to be good, and then I see this guy right in the first row of the upper deck look back and like give me a little look, and it happened to be his trainer.
Oh shit!
And now he's gone crazy. He's ranked 24. 21.
Yeah, he's old as well.
He's old. He's in his 30s.
Yeah.
And he's just now, this is his highest ranking ever. If he beat Tiafoe, he'd have been inside the top 20. But, 21 is pretty fucking good. I mean, listen, if we go... Also, South American tennis right now, Schwartzman, no. Baez, no. Jerry, Cerundolo, and Echeverry. Do you know Echeverry?
And then the Brazilian dude, Saiboth.
Wild. Yeah. I mean, they're all going pretty crazy right now. I mean, Baez, I saw someone say Baez is going to win Roland Garros at least one time.
Come on. Are you serious?
He would never, but he also has grit. He does have grit.
The South Americans, they have grit.
Yeah. Cerundolo,
you know what it is? Any country or any culture that develops their players around clay court are going to have way more grit. Especially Americans, because they grow up playing on hard courts, and like at any moment you just, if you want to end the point, you'll just try to smack a winner.
Yeah.
And if it's in, you win the point, and if it's out, you lose the point. Whereas like on clay court, you try to smack it. If it's in,
they get it.
It's not necessarily you're gonna win the point.
Yeah.
It's not kind of like that coin toss. Those are the guys that have grit. And I remember there's this one guy I used to teach tennis with, and this is back in my days when I was betting on tennis. I don't bet anymore for the last 2 years. And I don't condone it at all. Anybody who gambles, I strictly am against it in any way, shape, or form. It's fucking terrible. But when I was doing it, I was talking about it. I'm like, oh, who do you think for this match? And it was like the clay court season. He's like, any Italian on clay court, you got to bet for. Bro. And he's like, all they do is run around and eat pasta, and the pasta gives him the fucking carbs and energy to run around.
Who was it? Who was playing?
Man, Travaglia.
Yeah.
He was playing some like random thing, and he was playing like a top player. I think maybe not so top. Maybe it could have been like I think it was him.
Travaglia, yeah.
Yeah, it was him and Kukushkin.
The Kazakh.
And Kukushkin was like, like...
He's old, too.
He's also old. He's a journeyman. They were, like, playing as, like... Nobody knew about Travaglia just yet, because this is, like, 3 years ago. And the guy was just like, nah, the Italian. I'm like, really? This is, like, top 20 player or top 30, whatever?
Was he really? Yeah.
And
Kukushkin
I bet on Kukushkin because I was just like, nah, this is the better player. And then the Italian ended up winning. And then ever since that, I started really focusing on like the Italian players.
Yeah.
And like, Cecchinato. Remember when he made it? He made it to the semis.
He just had 3 good tournaments, and people were like, his career is back. And now I don't know where he is. Probably grinding challengers, but
yeah. Man, the tour right now is so tough.
Like look at Griekspoor won last week in Herzenbosch, his home country. Echeverry's playing top so 30, good. Wow. Yeah, I mean,
I haven't looked at this in the standings in a while. I'm a little shocked. Sonego, I feel like should be higher.
He's I mean, listen.
Fucking Shelton is 35 in the
world.
So
that's the thing about Shelton.
Bro.
So the 3 people I said to my boys. Jack Draper, Alcaraz, and Shelton before they were anyone. Ben Shelton, I could pull up the text right now. He was 500 something in the world. He had just won his first challenger match. Don't ask me why I was watching it.
This is in November last year. Or December last year.
November. Yeah, it was
November, December.
It was end of October.
End of October,
early November last year. He just played his first challenger.
He won like 3 in a row.
4 in a row.
4 in a row.
3 or 4 in a row. Yeah, but he was going crazy, and I was like, this guy is him. He's so good. He's 35 because he has no points to defend, obviously. Mm-hmm. But he's only good on hard, right? Like clay, he lost like 6 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Grass, he lost last week, first round. This week he beat JJ Wolf. Only his third ever. This was Ben Shelton's first week. It was his first ever grass court match professionally, and JJ Wolf's third ever grass court professionally. He beat JJ, and then yesterday he lost to Musetti in 3. It was a good match, but regardless, everyone is so high on Ben Shelton, and the fact that he's an American who's new and good, the mainstream media is trying to promote him so much. It's wild. There's so many better. I love Tommy Paul. Tommy Paul is...
I think that's to his disadvantage that everybody's trying to jump on this bandwagon. Because now there's going to be expectations, there's going to be pressure. A guy like Tommy Paul, for example, is just kind of like... Or Korda, they're just kind of... Or Cressy.
Look at this. 15
They're able to just coast under the radar and
Cressy's bad. He lost eight straight, I think.
That's not great. But one thing I would say, like, if I could have one player's career, it would be Thomas Berdych. Because he never left the top 10 for like a decade. He was always up there. He was always losing the quarters and the semis to these top guys. And, yes, he wasn't able to win anything major. He got to one Wimbledon final. And I think maybe 2 or 3 Masters titles, which is not like, I mean, it's great, but for his level and for all of that kind of stuff, I feel like it should have been more. But even without that, like, this guy was like under the radar his entire life. Like, he can walk on the street. And he has as much money as all the other guys. Yeah. But he's able to walk on the street and just like live his life.
Yeah, it's nice.
And like, if I could have one person's career, it would be Berdych. And there wasn't like that much hype around him. The guys like Shelton or I don't know, Alcaraz, like, there's so much hype and there's so much pressure, and like, a guy like Ruud, for example, there's not a lot of like press on him because like he's Norwegian, doesn't have great as charismatic personality. One player that I feel like should be doing better and isn't is Carreño Busta.
He hasn't played in months.
Oh, he's been injured?
Yeah. He's been withdrawn from everything. He wasn't in Roland Garros. He's withdrawn from all these grads. I think he withdrew from Wimbledon too. The guy who I love, of course, everyone has different play styles, right? Some people get super hype when they win a point. Some people don't. Like Shapovalov, every time he wins a point, he gives a little like racket. Like so does Alcaraz. Rusevori,
cold-blooded.
44. Yeah, nothing ever. He loses, he wins, same thing every time. He goes out to every single tournament. I don't know the last time he missed a tournament from injury, if ever, but he'll lose first round consistently. Every time. First, second, third round. He's 0 for 4 in ATP finals matches. Mm-hmm. Which is like...
That's kind of
the
like...
nerves get to him.
Oh, actually, to go back to a previous question... The most disappointing player, Felix.
Yeah. I mean, he won 3 in a row last year. And then,
titles?
Yeah. And then now, I read something where they said he just worked his body so much last year, grinding back to back tournaments, and he's injured now because he can't keep it up. You can't.
I mean, that's one thing to learn from, like, the best guys, like Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. They're always very selective which they play. And they're only playing 17 to 22, 23 tournaments a year. Whereas, like, the other guys were, like, pushing 30.
30.
35.
35.
Like, they're pushing
How many are there?
Yeah. There's probably, like, 40...
some of them are in the same week, though, of course, right?
Yeah, I'd say there's, like, maybe 45 weeks of tournaments. Something like that around the year. Like December, it dies down. December is kind of like the off season, so that's 4 weeks right there. And then first week of January, they're jumping in. There's like the ATP Cup, or not the ATP Cup, the
NATO,
the World Cup thing, the new tournament that they're doing.
Like Nito, I think, right?
Nito, yeah, but that's only for the top 8. After that, the rest of the season kind of dies. There's a new rule that nobody has been talking about.
Okay.
And
the coaches?
No. And it has to do with the 2 tours, the WTA and the ATP.
Okay.
And I think that people should be talking about this if they want to talk about the equality and the gender equality in sports and stuff like that, which I think is completely hypocritical by the associations, what they're doing right now. For example, WTA... They are not allowing top players to play certain 250s.
I saw that, yeah.
And to give like an opportunity to other players to jump in and make their way. But on the other side, they're making it mandatory for the top players to play these smaller tournaments to drive audience into them. And so, like, you know, a guy like Djokovic, I don't know if this really applies to Djokovic, but like some of the other guys, like, they'd rather take the week off than play a 250.
Yeah.
Because Djokovic, you know, let's use Djokovic for example. Djokovic is focused on just showing up for the big tournaments. He doesn't want to waste his time, his energy, risk getting injured, doesn't need the money. But the ATP is making them play these small tournaments. And I think that's really hypocritical between the ATP and the WTA to not allow top WTA players to play in these smaller tournaments, but then make it for the top ATP players to play in these small tournaments.
Yeah.
And that's like a very subtle thing that nobody has been talking about. And it's, I mean, hypocritical if you want to talk about, you know, being treated the same, having the same pay and all these kind of stuff. You got to have the same rules between it. You can't lock players out of other ones and then make other players go to it. That just doesn't make sense if we're talking about equality.
I don't know. I don't really follow WTA that much, but I know Katie Boulter, who's dating Demonor, is the British #1, and she's ranked 77. That's bad.
I mean, on the women's tour, I feel like it's really heavily dominated by Eastern Europeans, and to add to that, it's like they have no other option. It's either go pro, like literally throw everything on the line and go pro, because a lot of them are like come from poor countries and families and stuff like that. So it's either go pro or live this super basic life.
You know
and
about
like everybody's going after it, and you yeah.
This girl, Amir Andreeva, I think is her name. Andreeva. Yeah, you know her?
I heard the name.
She's 16.
Yeah.
And she's going crazy. She's top 100 now. She almost beat Goff in the...
Listen, I don't want to talk about 16-year-olds because let's see where they're at in 4 years when they're 20.
Like...
Let's see. If they're still on the top, good for them. But if they're not, which honestly I would say is more likely than not, we'll see. You know, we just got to see how it plays out.
How though? Won't they only get better? Like what ATP people were young who made it? I mean, Alcaraz.
I wouldn't speak about Alcaraz just yet.
See, like this is our biggest disconnect, right? Because I think Alcaraz is winning 30 Grand Slams. That's what I think. He is a Djokovic guy. Oh, Djokovic, you know, which is fine. It's good to agree.
No, we just need to see it. Look,
we need to see. Yes, he could have a career-ending injury in Wimbledon.
I see.
Oh my God,
it's my cat. I see. No, I agree with you that Alcaraz can break the records, because the biggest issue that the last 20 years has faced was that everything was being split between 3 guys.
Yeah.
You know, these like super dominant guys. Now that you have one dominant guy, he's able to collect all of these tournaments that weren't initially distributed into 3 guys, and it could be focused on one guy. But he still needs to be that dominant.
Yeah.
And we have to see if he won U.S. Open and then he didn't play Australian Open. Well, if that's going to be his career, like he needs to be winning consistently, like at least 2 a year.
Yeah, I mean he does. Who do you think has the best one-handed backhand on tour?
Cats of the pod. Best one-handed backhand on tour, I still give it to Wawrinka.
Really? Okay.
I still give it to Wawrinka. The way once he plants that right foot, you don't know if it's going down the line, if it's going cross court, if the way he's able to generate so much power and spin out of like every single position on court is still, I think, is the best right now. Even though he's a little bit older and his movement.
He's a big guy.
He's stocky. But I remember I was a ball boy for U.S. Open, and I ball boy for Wawrinka one time when he was playing against Hyun Chung. Remember that guy? A Korean dude?
Yeah,
Which I don't know what happened to him. He fell off. He got injured, and I don't know what happened after that. But I remember I was watching Wawrinka like on the court hit some backhands, and he would hit these like backhand cross courts with so much power and so much angle, and I just couldn't believe like how is he getting so much power and so much angle out of it. And it was like that spin, and I don't even know how he did it. Like he would rip it cross court, and it'd be bouncing like before the service line, and just completely pulling the guy off court, and then setting it up for the next shot. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, I have never seen so much, just so much power and so much angle. I'm like, how does the physics even make sense at that point? Like it should be going out, but like it keeps on dropping in. So like he's got like one of those where, and I remember watching him like, especially like when he was playing Djokovic in the Australian Open like years ago, 2016, 2015, and he was just like ripping these backhands. But one thing I have to say about one-handed backhands on tour, I would say they're all incredible, and they need to be incredible, because if you have an average one-handed backhand, you're gonna be taken down. Yeah. Two hands is gonna beat you every single day of the week.
Gas guy.
He has a great backhand. My
last point: keep an eye out for Jun Cheng Shang. He's ranked 170 something right now. He's a young Chinese guy, and he's gonna be good. Wait for it. He's young. He's gonna be good.
I'm surprised China doesn't have more players coming out of it. The way they treat like ping pong, table tennis over there, where they literally. I was doing PT for a couple of years, and the guy who was working with me was from China, and the government literally goes to schools, every single school around the country. They have a tournament at these schools, and the kid who wins it, they literally take him away from the school and the family, from everything, and start training them at the academy. And this is why China has such good table tennis players. With that kind of mentality, they should be banging out more top players, especially with the amount of people that are in this country as well. Looking like Serbia, to have number one guy in Serbia, and like the population is like 10% of China. I feel like they should have some more. That concludes it for this episode of the Tipsy Tennis Podcast. If you enjoyed our talk about professional tennis and our hot takes on it, please let me know. This is the first time that I've really done it. Every other episode has been a highlight on my guest. But this is a more, I would say, broader episode to appeal to the masses. It's something that I wasn't really originally planning on doing, just because there's so many people out there right now giving their hot takes, and I don't want to be one of them. However, I think this was a really fun, really cool episode. Got a lot of, we talked about a lot of different players.
We did. It was good.
Yeah, it was really good. Do you have anything left in your anything? No, nothing? All right, we'll do a cheers anyway. The Tipsy Tennis.
On top soon.
On the count of three, we're going to say stay tipsy. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Stay tipsy.